Okay, when it rains here at the college, the water that comes, it falls either on the roofs here or it falls out there in the parking lots, and it needs someplace to go. And there are 2 or 3 places that the rain can go, the rainwater can go quickly. One of them is the pond that we see behind us back here. The second place is a pond that we're going to visit in a little bit. We're going to another pond. And then there's even some out in the northern end of the college. There's some deep pits like that are out in the parking lots there. These, what you see here behind me, are called retention ponds. And they're areas to collect all that rainwater. So the first question that we want to answer today is, does this retention pond ever get any pollutants in it? And if you'll follow on your lab guide, I think it's asking you whether it gets any pollutants from different areas. Somebody want to tell me what the first thing is? I think you have it there, that it asks, does Route 14, that road that's right behind the pond there, does it contribute any pollutants to our pond that we have here on the campus? Anybody want to volunteer and answer? What do you think, what type of pollutants we get?
Asphalt.
What's that?
Oil.
Oil, yeah, oil products from the cars and so forth can eventually make their way into here. Any other ones that you know of? You got to think about the wintertime. What's the major? Salt. We get lots of salt off the road. So that would be one possible pollutant that would come into this water. It asks you, does it get any nutrients from the road? That would be a little bit difficult to come up with. Nutrients would be any type of molecules that could support food for animals in the pond. And you might have to use your imagination. This might be a bit gross, but if there was a roadkill up there, some of that biological material might end up in the pond and actually end up supporting things there. But that's a stretch of your imagination. Mostly we would consider Route 14 being a pollutant for the lake. What's the next thing on the list? The ball fields, yeah. Over in the direction over here, you've seen those as you drive into the college. We have a softball field and a baseball field. Can you think of what they do to that field that could be considered either a pollutant or a nutrient to our lakes? Fertilizers. So what is that going to be? Is that going to be a pollutant or a nutrient?
Depends on what's in the fertilizer.
It depends on the fertilizer, exactly. If you put lots of phosphorus in here, it could be a pollutant in that it would cause a lot of algae to bloom, and it may make it too rich for it. But at the same time, if it was getting nitrogen and some other substance, it might be considered a nutrient in that it might actually help some things be a good nitrogen source. So that one's a little bit tricky. What's the next one on the list? Parking lots. Pollutants or nutrients. Well, it's exactly the same as we talked about Route 14. I don't know if you've ever seen here how the campus ends up with, in the early morning, we actually have people that go out every single morning to pick up all the stuff that people throw into the parking lots. And it's fairly incredible the trash that they end up picking up. Is that a pollutant or a nutrient? Well, if you left a Big Mac there, part of a Big Mac, then you have to look at it's biological. Maybe it's going to be a nutrient. But for the most part, all the debris and stuff would be considered pollutants. And the last thing is a prairie area. And most students don't know this, but we actually have a 1-acre prairie that's behind the baseball field. And this prairie area has been rehabilitated. And so do you think that would be considered a pollutant or a nutrient? It's probably a nutrient. Again, dying biological material, it's natural material, and that would be, I think, considered a nutrient. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go down and examine this pond closer. So let's walk on down there now. Okay, so this is a retention pond, and when you drive into the campus, you could take a look at it to find out, well, how wet has it been? This will be a good indicator for you. We had a very dry August, and you can see these stones go pretty far down, but the maximum capacity this comes up to about this point right here. At the far end of this pond, you can look way down there to the south, and at the very far end, you can actually see a pipe all the way down down there at the south end. That pipe, when the water gets too full in here, takes the water out of this pond and takes it underneath the road that you enter the college at the red light. And then later you're going to see the ditches and things that funnel the water over to the second pond, and that's the pond that we're going to go to in just a little bit. This is a very unnatural pond. It is meant to look pretty. But if you didn't do a lot of man-made things to this, it wouldn't be a very pretty pond at all. One thing you might notice on this pond is it has very little scum. That's not natural. Okay, to avoid getting lots of scum in this pond, the college dumps chemicals in here. And the one chemical that we add is called copper sulfate, and it tinges the water to a deep bluish color. That prevents the light from penetrating very deeply into the pond. Since the light can't get very deep in here, the algae doesn't grow very well at all. And so that's unnatural. The little aerator, the pretty fountain, that doesn't probably affect too many things in the pond, but it looks nice, and so that's why that's there. It actually may aerate the water a little bit for some of the fish and things. About almost 20 years ago, one of the secretary's husbands at the college had been fishing and caught a bunch of green sunfish, a form of bluegill, and brought them to the college and threw them in the pond. I think he's the only person that ever put anything in this pond, because the only fish you catch in this pond are green sunfish, and there are lots of them in here. I actually, in the summertime, have taught a course on fly fishing. And so we bring people down here with little fake flies and things, and you throw them out there, you will immediately catch fish. I can guarantee you, anybody in this class, if you've never fished before, within 5 minutes I would have you catching fish in here. They're voracious, they're begging for food. So this has all green sunfish in it. And then there's some other critters that have inhabited the pond fairly naturally. When we walk down here, you may have seen lots of ripples in the pond from frogs. We have two major varieties of frogs here, bullfrogs and green frogs. And then it's filled with lots of small organisms. They would include different larvae of mayflies, damselflies, dragonflies, all these type of flies, their larval stage would be down in here. But what it has lots of are tiny microscopic organisms, protistans. The one that we'll see several different diatoms in class. Now, to be able to catch those organisms, those tiny organisms, we use a thing like this. This is called a plankton net, and we unwind it. And the thing I want you to notice here is a very fine mesh. So when the organisms are trapped in here, they end up flowing down into this tube right down here, and we can get them out. So I'm going to throw this out. The nice thing about this is you could actually do a calibrated or a volumetric measurement of how many organisms are per unit of area. You can measure the size of this and how far you pass it through the water column and do that. We're not going to do that in class, but in this case we're just going to see what we can capture. So just walk over here and throw this out. And I usually like to let it go down a little bit, but I want to keep this one off the bottom. So I'm just pulling it in now. And we end up with a water sample here. Can somebody get the bottle that's in the bucket? And this it's going to be hard for you to see, but I'll dump it in here. First of all, you might notice it has a greenish tinge, and then when we get back in the lab, if you look closely, you'll see it's got all kinds of little particles in here. And if you look very closely, you'll actually see many of the particles are actually moving, that they swim in here. So that's one thing. I'll ask you to hold that again for just a second. I'm going to throw this back out. Now the second sample, I'm going to try to make this sample a little dirtier than the first sample. I'm going to let this try to go down near the bottom and try and get some of the muck that's on the bottom. That didn't work well. But actually it's down on the bottom. So now I'm dragging it very slowly and I can actually feel it bumping rocks and things like that. I'll try to bring it over here around some of these rocks. And that sample hopefully will be what I would call a little dirtier sample. You can see there's some junk there. Junk's good when you want to look for biological material. I assure you there's lots of good stuff to see in this sample. So put that there. And we'll put a lid on that. And we'll take it back to the room. So lots of organisms that live, especially on the bottom. These rocks are all coated with a slime area that have lots of these organisms. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to leave this area and we're going to go to another pond where the overflow from here goes. Okay, we're standing next to the road that comes into the college, and the red lights are right up there. You may have noticed that there was the tube that came out of the pond. It runs in under the road, and then the water, when it overflows, comes down through this ditch right here, and eventually it goes into that pond behind, and then continues from that little pond right there all the way down between the ball fields, and it goes to a pond that we're going to go to next. Most people don't even know this little pond exists back in the woods back here. But this is where all the runoff occurs. Again, another good indicator of how much rain have we had in the area is to watch that pond when you drive in. We had a rain a few days ago, and before that, that was almost dry. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to the other pond now. And this is the second pond, retention pond at the college, and it's not pretty at all. It's hidden back here with a bunch of trees that have grown around it. Trees will come into the area with these. You can tell this pond's been here for about 30 years, and you can see the growth of cottonwood trees, and you can see these willow trees around here also. Some of the measurements that we can take, for instance, today's temperature is approximately 17 degrees centigrade. And then we're going to take some water temperatures. Can you take that water probe and put it down in the water here? And we're going to try to put it down about 1 meter to the bottom. And we'll let her hold that there. And what we're going to find out, I believe, today is that the water temperature is hopefully slightly warmer than the air temperature, because it's the end of summer here and the air temperature is cooling, but the water temperature will cool slower. And so hopefully we'll get that here in just a second. In fact, why don't you go ahead and pull it up here and we'll see what, can you read it real quickly?
About 20.
Okay, it's about 20 degrees centigrade. So we have warmer water there. There was also a measurement. Do you want to slowly walk back in here and you can give me that thermometer? I'll take another one here at the edge. Sometimes the edges will be cooler in this situation than the bottom would have been. But in our pond, we don't have a lot of contrast between these. So you just hand that to me. And so I'll try and take a temperature here right at the edge. In fact, I'll have you come over and why don't you just hold that right at the edge here for a second. Just right there is fine. And just hold it in right there for a second. Another measurement we can make of the water is the acidity level of the water. In class, we talked about acid rain, and we had lakes from up in the Adirondack area that had pHs of acidity levels at 2, pH of 2. And so we'll see what our pH level is here. So this paper changes colors to indicate the pH. And I'll do that now. And I'll come up here and somebody can take a look and you can shout out what you think the pH is to the rest of the class.
Probably like 11.
No, this.
Oh, 5?
It's between 5 and 6. It's about 5.5. Okay, so we have pH levels. We have other water quality measurements that we can make, including clarity of the water. And so for clarity of the water, we're going to use this disc out here. And this is called a Secchi disc. And all it does, it's a very simple instrument that you drop into the water and you watch it go down. And when you can't see it anymore, then you figure out how far down did it go before it disappeared. So just slowly let it in the water and then use a string to indicate how far can you see it go down in the water. When it disappears, mark it. And there you see it made about a foot, which would be somewhere between 30 and 40 centimeters down into the water. And you can come on in also then. Crystal Lake, just to give you a comparison with Crystal Lake, right now that would go down probably 6 to 8 feet before it would disappear in the summertime. In the wintertime it goes down over 14 feet and you can see it all the way down. So this is a dirty pond, meaning that there's a lot of silt in it. That's not necessarily bad, it's just an indicator there's silt and lots of algae here. So I'll put these things away and then I'm going to have you go collect some organisms for us. I need this net. So this is called a seine here. And each of you, I can take that from you. So what you're going to do here is you're going to unroll this and put this side up. And then walk out there apart from each other. You see it has weights in the bottom. Here, I'm going to take your end of it and just show something here. When they sample, what you're going to do is this part right here, you have to feel the bottom. So when you're walking in, you're feeling that bottom all the way in. This will float. You have to keep it in motion all the time. If you stop, then anything that got in there can swim out. When I tell you to lift it, you're going to take it and you're going to lift it like this quickly. And all the organisms will fall into here. Okay, so go out there pretty deep. Don't start sampling yet. You're not going to sample until you get way out there. So careful on the edge.
I know, I don't fall then.
So we're not putting a stick in yet?
No, don't use the stick yet. You're going to do it when you come back in. And I'd like you to go out as far as you feel comfortable. That's not going to be too far. There's just a lot of muck. This bottom is real muddy, and it's not very comfortable walking. The pond in its deepest point is only about 5 feet deep, but sometimes it comes way up here. You can see on the edges here how far up it can come. Okay, it's spread out and that should work right there, I think. So put it down on the bottom. Okay, and then just walk back in, keeping that on the bottom and just try to keep it moving. Come right towards me. And hopefully the organisms are getting up into that and getting caught by the seine. This seine has a fairly large mesh, so we don't catch real little. Okay, go ahead and lift it now. And then come on up here. That was a good run there. We got lots of critters in here. And now you can just sort of sit it down. Now I'm going to be throwing things back. You get the award for the largest fish I've ever seen caught in the lake, okay? This is a bluegill. It's actually one of the green sunfish that I told you about that live over in the other pond. So it's made its way all the way over here, and it's a variety of many different types of bluegills. So that's pretty neat that you caught that. We're going to throw him back in. Okay, now we have a variety of different minnows here, and I don't know all my minnow types, so I'm just going to tell you that this one's like a golden shiner. It is different from this minnow right here. There's two different minnows there. And then we have lots of the same type of minnows. We have, I'm going to throw them in first, get them all back in the water. We're not going to take them back to the classroom. This is an entirely different minnow from the first two I showed you. It's got little spots on it. You can't see the spots very well on it, but it's entirely different species. There are three different types of minnows in here. And the only other thing we caught right here was a little tadpole. And that's a small tadpole in here. We normally catch tadpoles that are maybe 3 to 4 inches long. So I'll give you one more try to see if you can catch a bigger tadpole. We don't have any, unfortunately there are no insects in here because the insect larvae can get through this mesh. So we didn't catch any of them. So I'll let you do one more pass. And you can go back out, and if you want to vary it a little bit, you could probably go a little more left, maybe. Things that I have seen caught here include little catfish. We have very tiny catfish that live here, and crayfish. And hopefully we'll catch a crayfish so you can see one of them. Okay, well, I'd go ahead and lift now. And I don't think we got the same things. And that often happens. It's one thing I've noticed here is we end up with the same things over again. So we didn't get as many. We got a couple snails this time. Something a little bit different. But we didn't catch any of our crayfish. Oh, there's a good one, yeah. Can you get my bucket? You can lay that down and pick up one of those buckets there. Try to show you that little thing. That's something that you get to identify back in the lab. It's a larval form. I'll just tell you so you don't have to look it up, but this is a dragonfly larva. Okay, and can you put a little water in that, and we'll put them in the water and take them back so you can see them back in the lab. There you go, thank you. Now we have one more thing that we'll let you try to capture here. A little bit larger tadpole, but we didn't catch any of the real big boys on this run. We catch them in various stages. My last class caught one with 4 legs. It was all ready to turn into an adult frog, but it changes with different labs. You never know what you're going to get. Okay, before we go back, we're going to do one more thing here. We'll wrap that up later. Each of you, I'm going to give you a net here, and you're going to go out into the water. And what I want you to sample, I'll try and show you. You're going to go near anything that's sticking in the water, and don't go low, but just try to wish through that like that. And do it multiple times. For instance, I caught one little thing here. I don't know whether we can get that on camera or not. There's a tiny mayfly nymph on here. Okay, so these are the type of critters we're trying to capture now. But I want you to do this, you do it multiple times, do it at least 10 times, and then come back, just keep swooping through. No, go to different plants. But don't come back here till you've done 10 swoops. Okay? And don't try not to get a bunch of mud. Try to keep it up off the muddy bottom. You can go off on the right side here around those sticks that are sticking up over there.
Alright, we never got the edge temperature.
The edge temperature, yeah. Let me get that for you while they're doing that. I meant to get that a little bit ago. Yeah, you can just do a lot of the different ones out there. Just try different sticks. And this is 18. Whoop. Oh. Okay, why don't you see, if you want to give me that, I'll take a look and see if you got anything. I don't see too much of interest there. A bunch of little stuff, but I don't see any of the critters. We'll just take this back and look back at it in the lab. You want to bring yours up? Hey, you can come on out now. There's one thing I'm trying to see if we capture. We got it last lab, but I don't think we got one. My favorite thing that we capture doing this is a water scorpion. And we didn't get one this time. I'll show you this. There's a little mayfly nymph there. Did you get a chance to see that? So that's a little mayfly nymph, but I'm going to throw all this stuff into our sample here. And we'll take it back to the classroom. I want to just tell you before we go back about water scorpions. We have a insect that looks a little bit like a praying mantis that lives in here. If you've ever seen a walking stick, it really looks a lot like that. It sits there with its legs out like this, like a praying mantis. It's about that long. And it sits there and it waits, and then when small either insects like mosquito larvae or very tiny minnows swim by, captures them and eats them. It is a carnivorous insect, just like a praying mantis is. And the interesting thing about it is, as an insect, it has to have a mechanism to breathe, and it doesn't have any gills. The larval insects have gills. They can breathe with that. So what this insect has, it's like a stick, a real long stick, but at the very end of the stick, coming out of its butt, is a tube. And that tube sticks up out of the water. So it's always sitting there pointed down with a tube, and it's breathing with that mechanism. We caught one last time, but unfortunately we didn't get one today. Have any questions about the pond before we go back? Okay, we're going to go back to the lab now, and I'll meet you back in there.